Extensive sociological and psychological research over the past century has consistently demonstrated an inverse relationship between cognitive ability and religious belief. Peer-reviewed studies across multiple nations show that individuals with higher IQ scores and greater educational attainment are significantly more likely to identify as atheists or agnostics compared to their less cognitively gifted peers. This phenomenon isn't limited to Western societies. The pattern holds true across diverse cultures from Scandinavia to East Asia. But why does this correlation exist? The answer lies in understanding how intelligent minds process information, evaluate evidence, and form belief systems. Higher cognitive ability appears to predispose individuals towards certain thought patterns and epistemic standards that make traditional religious belief systems psychologically incompatible. This video will examine 20 well-documented psychological, neurological, and sociological factors that explain why increased intelligence statistically predicts decreased religiosity. Intelligent individuals typically develop what psychologists call a scientific mindset, a cognitive framework that prioritizes empirical evidence, logical consistency, and falsifiability when evaluating truth claims. Religious propositions fundamentally differ from scientific ones in that they rely on unfalsifiable assertions like an omnipotent being's existence, supernatural miracles, and afterlife concepts that cannot be disproven by any conceivable evidence. Highly intelligent people demonstrate significantly lower tolerance for such non-falsifiable claims, as their cognitive processes naturally seek testable hypotheses and verifiable data. Neuroscientific research shows that analytical thinkers exhibit stronger activation in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for critical evaluation, when confronted with religious or supernatural claims. This neural response pattern helps explain why Nobel laureates in the sciences are overwhelmingly non-religious compared to the general population, with surveys showing less than 10% profess belief in a personal God. A seminal 2011 study published in the journal Science demonstrated that analytic thinking, independent of general intelligence, predicts religious disbelief. When researchers experimentally induced analytic thinking in subjects through simple cognitive exercises like solving word problems requiring logical analysis, participants became significantly more likely to express atheistic views immediately afterward. This suggests that the very cognitive processes involved in breaking down complex problems and identifying logical inconsistencies naturally undermine religious faith. Intelligent individuals tend to be exceptionally skilled at detecting contradictions in narratives, a capability that proves particularly damaging to religious belief systems filled with internal inconsistencies, historical inaccuracies, and logical paradoxes like the problem of evil coexisting with an omnipotent, benevolent God. Their brains appear wired to reject explanations that rely on special pleading or supernatural loopholes when naturalistic alternatives exist. Longitudinal studies tracking individuals from childhood to adulthood reveal a clear dose-response relationship between years of formal education and likelihood of religious apostasy. Each additional year of higher education corresponds with measurable decreases in religious affiliation and church attendance. Education doesn't merely provide alternative explanations for natural phenomena, it fundamentally rewires how the brain evaluates truth claims by teaching 1. The importance of methodological naturalism, 2. The difference between correlation and causation, and 3. The cognitive biases that predispose humans towards supernatural belief. Intelligent individuals disproportionately pursue higher education and subsequently internalize these critical thinking tools, making it increasingly difficult to maintain literal interpretations of religious doctrines that conflict with established scientific knowledge. Psychological research using standardized tolerance for ambiguity scales shows that intelligent individuals demonstrate significantly greater comfort with unanswered questions and existential uncertainty. Where religious systems provide absolute ready-made answers to life's biggest questions, purpose, morality, origins, highly intelligent minds tend to reject such pat explanations in favor of more nuanced, evidence-based understandings that acknowledge the limits of current knowledge. Brain scan studies reveal that when confronted with unanswerable existential questions, religious subjects show activation in emotional processing centers, while non-religious intelligent individuals exhibit neural patterns indicating cognitive acceptance of uncertainty. This fundamental difference in epistemic style makes dogmatic religious answers appear simplistic and emotionally driven rather than intellectually satisfying to analytical thinkers. Human brains evolved several cognitive shortcuts that made ancestral humans more likely to develop religious beliefs, including hyperactive agency detection, which is attributing natural events to intentional beings, teleological thinking, which involves assuming purpose behind random events, and confirmation bias, which means remembering answered prayers while forgetting the unanswered ones. Intelligence appears to act as a buffer against these innate tendencies. This cognitive difference explains why intelligent people are less likely to interpret coincidences as miracles or attribute personal fortune to divine intervention. Their brains are simply better at recognizing these as statistical inevitabilities rather than supernatural signs. Religions frequently justify their truth claims through appeals to antiquity, like saying we've believed this for thousands of years, and authority, such as the priest, pastor, or imam, says it's true. Intelligent individuals show particular resistance to such argumentative fallacies, insisting that claims stand or fall based on evidence rather than tradition or hierarchical position. Historical literacy plays a key role here. Educated people recognize that long-held beliefs have often been spectacularly wrong, like geocentrism, the divine right of kings, and the phlogiston theory, making tradition a poor indicator of truth. This explains why countries with strong secular education systems show the fastest declines in religious affiliation. Education provides too many counterexamples of traditional beliefs being overturned by evidence. Intelligent people who study multiple religious systems quickly notice that each faith makes mutually exclusive truth claims while employing identical justifications, such as personal revelations, sacred texts, and miraculous events. This recognition of religious pluralism's inherent contradictions leads many to conclude that if all religions use the same evidence standards yet contradict each other, none can be reliably true. The more one learns about comparative religion, the more obvious it becomes that specific religious affiliations are largely accidents of birth geography rather than products of divine revelation. This realization explains why religious belief declines fastest among those who study theology or religious history at advanced levels. They see behind the curtain of cultural conditioning. Decades of research confirm that scientific knowledge strongly predicts religious disbelief. Intelligent individuals disproportionately enter STEM fields where they internalize naturalistic explanations for phenomena previously attributed to deities. For example, they understand lightning as an electrical discharge rather than Zeus's anger, and they see disease as caused by pathogens rather than demonic possession. Studies of elite scientists show near-universal rejection of supernatural beliefs, with 93% of National Academy of Sciences members being atheists. This isn't because science disproves God, but because the scientific method's rigorous standards of evidence make religious claims appear extraordinarily implausible by comparison. So, intelligent individuals are, more often than not, inclined to develop ethical systems grounded in rational principles. This includes frameworks like utilitarianism and human rights, rather than relying on divine command theory. This creates significant cognitive dissonance when confronting religious moral edicts that conflict with reasoned ethics, such as the condemnation of homosexuality, gender inequality, and religious violence. The cumulative psychological evidence paints a clear picture. Human brains evolved cognitive biases that predispose us toward religious belief, but higher intelligence provides the analytical tools to overcome these innate tendencies. At its core, the intelligence-religiosity relationship reflects different epistemic approaches to truth-seeking, one prioritizing evidence and logic, the other prioritizing tradition and revelation. As education and scientific literacy continue to spread globally, we can expect these cognitive factors to drive further secularization across society.